Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu, and I hope you're all doing well, and I hope your journeys are safe and fun. Anyway, today what I wanted to cover was belt testing. Now, as many of you know, belt testing is not something that we do here at Kama Jiu-Jitsu, at least not formally. We're always testing our students, but it's never really formal. Actually, come to think of it, there was one session that we had that was actually formal. The student didn't know. In fact, you might have, if you saw our video that I did with two of my students, Zach and David, both of our purple belts here in Texas, and Zach was actually formally tested. Well, he didn't know he was. We had him come over to the house. Dave happened to be in town. Zach doesn't live that far from me. Gave him a quick text and said, hey, what are you doing? Why don't you come over to the house? So he came over, and when he got here, chit-chatted a little with Professor Dave, have him put a gi on. Didn't even have a belt. He did the test, not in his blue belt, but in a white belt, because he didn't know he was coming to train. Took him upstairs to the mat, and we had Greg, who's one of our assistant instructors from California, who happened to be in town, and he was Zach's training dummy. Professor Dave then spent the next hour going through various things. Okay, do this. All right, let me see this, let me see that. Mentally checking off all the boxes that Zach had achieved everything that Dave is looking for. After that 1 hour was done, Professor Dave looks at me and goes, which means he passed. So Zach then got his purple belt. So Zach was formally tested. All of our other students, though, it's kind of worked out that way. Dave happened to be here, and I happened to wanted to get Zach in front of Dave so Dave could evaluate him to confirm what I had already believed in my mind. After talking with a lot of friends of mine who see the videos, they're also subscribers to the channel, and they say, Ryan, let's kind of talk a little bit about this, about your whole being anti-belt testing. And I think they've put some good points in front of me. For one thing, we've always been a small school. So when you have a small school, you know all your students' jiu-jitsu games pretty intimately. You know, at least I do, Dave does, what everybody is good and weak at. And when we have a moment, we set some time aside and tell them, hey, we need to have you work on this, okay? Do this. And as time goes on, being that they're all group classes, we do have some students who do private classes, and when they do a private session, then it's easy to fill in gaps and make sure that the students don't have any holes. And then what they do is they go to a group class and they'll reinforce what they did in the private the week prior. So in that way, it's easy, whether they're private only or group and private. But when they're group only students, it becomes a challenge, especially as the classes get larger. So I have a lot of friends who have numbers of students much larger than Kama Jiu-Jitsu. And they say, for the ones that don't, they say it's very difficult for them to be able to keep up with all their students and to know how good they are. So what they have to do then is they have to then go to the timeline schedule, where they look on their management system and they see, okay, so-and-so student has been here 50 times. Okay, it's time to give him a stripe on his belt. They don't know what he knows and what he doesn't know. They just know he's been to 50 classes. Right? But they're so busy that they can't possibly keep up with every single student. Now, when you have 200 students, how are you going to do that? It's tough. Other black belts that I speak to, they say, well, the solution to that is you want everybody to have the same abilities, meaning have the same techniques down before you move them on. And that's what we do. That's what we've always done. We have a curriculum, and they have to meet the curriculum, the requirements of the curriculum, and they have to be able to execute. If they don't execute, then they wait. I have noticed that as the school has gotten larger, especially out here in Texas, the times to get from one belt to another belt or to go up a level has increased. I don't know if it's because the early members would come more often and more regularly than the current members, or if it's because we just have a lot more members now. That's something we're kind of evaluating, which I guess makes it the reason why we're now more open to the possibility of having belt testing. But the problem is, and this is something I've always kind of wondered about, and, I'd even kind of mock it, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to have a certain day. So on Friday of this week, Friday evening, I'm going to have belt testing. So you, let's say 10 of you, okay? I want you to come over to class Friday night, and we're going to do belt testing. Well, being that it's a time that's not regularly scheduled, being that it's time that I'm not usually teaching, do I do it for free or do I charge them? Because that would mean that to do something, let's say on a Friday night, when I'm not normally in the academy, then that's the night I would take my family out, for instance. So it's going to cost me that time. And the same thing's going to happen for the members. They're going to have to change their schedule as well. Do we set up a time that I actually go and test them and then have to charge them for it? So I ask these questions of these friends of mine, these black belt friends of mine, and they say, well, yeah, I mean, that's what we do. Okay, so then my question is, okay, what if they don't attend the testing? Then they don't get their promotion. And it makes sense when they put it to me that way. And the reason is because, on the one hand, if I know somebody should be at a certain level, I know in my heart, I've trained with them, I've watched them train, I've helped them, and I know that they've checked all the boxes. Am I going to make them come to testing and pay the fee? I don't know. I don't really feel that that's not something I would want to do, right? Because I already know the answer to the question, but I'll do it. Today, I just give them the belt. But in a system where it's systematized, which is what we're trying to do with Jiu-Jitsu, to make it to where you don't have two people that are 5 years into the art, both blue belts, but yet don't know the same things, right? We can't have that, right? Because when you have that, that's when you start to see the decline of your school's overall jiu-jitsu. And that's where it gets to be where people go, well, I can't play guard, at least not very well, so I'm going to start watching YouTube and I'm going to start learning guard from somebody else. Well, if you keep doing that, what happens is your jiu-jitsu ends up not being your jiu-jitsu anymore. It ends up being a conglomeration of jiu-jitsu. Now, for some schools, that's fine. That's really what they are. But for us, and maybe for you, or maybe for your professor, that's not the case. You have a certain style. There's a way you want all your students to do it, and you don't want them doing it a different way. So in that case, you have your curriculum and you have your standards, right? There may be 20 different ways to do an armbar, but you want your students to do it one particular way. As they get up into the upper belt ranks, then have at it. Play around, experiment, but when it comes down to it, you will do it this way, and you will do it this way all the time. So that's the reason why you would want to have belt testing. A lot of my best friends that I get a lot of back and forth from are black belts under Grandmaster Helson. Why is that? Well, Rickson doesn't have a lot of black belts. He just doesn't. For whatever reason, it was a challenge to get a black belt. So, there aren't that many Rickson, as I say, true Rickson black belts running around. There are a lot of people who got put on a black belt by Rickson Gracie, but as far as the ones that were in his academy, training with him, getting the benefit of the daily Rickson, there aren't that many. On the other hand, Helson had a lot of black belts that he spent a lot of time with. Being that I've got a lot of friends that are Helson black belts, I'll see a lot of happenings that go on. So what Helson does, and I've known this for years now, what he does is for his black belts, he tests them. For every time they're up for a degree, they have to undergo a belt test. What it is, it's you buy an hour of Helson's time. It costs you $250. You need to go over, for Helson at least, the self-defense curriculum. The entire self-defense curriculum. Every time you're up for a degree. It's known. It's not anything that's unknown. Now, there may have been changes, updates that Helson would have, and he'll give it to them. But you're taking his time. So, in fact, I think it's probably a day or two that he will just meet, and his black belts will fly in, and he will test them. And he will make sure that they know it. If you don't know it, it doesn't matter that you spent the money. If you forgot in the last 2 years since your last degree, you forgot all the gun defenses that he likes, for example, I don't think you'll pass. I don't know. So, as a result, the black belts get together and they study together weeks ahead of time. Weeks ahead of time. And they will make sure that they all have it down. Because, number one, they want the promotion that they worked so hard to earn. And number two, it costs them money to test with the Grandmaster. And if they fail, then they're going to have to wait till 2 years from now. And he will fail you. Now, Grandmaster Rickson did kind of experiment with testing a while back. I remember this. And in fact, he did it semi-regularly. I don't know. But I know Professor Fernando, one of Dave's black belts, he was tested, I don't know if it was for his black belt or for his brown belt, one of the two. And Rickson tested 3 of them. And the total time was 8 hours. 8 hours. Rickson had so many things that he required of them that he required of the students to know that it took 8 hours. And even at that point, Rickson was kind of exasperated because the technical abilities weren't perfect because, as we all know, Grandmaster Rickson, his mind is always going. It's going. He's always looking to improve something. And if the way you do your armbar today is the way he did it 10 years ago, he's already improved it several times by then. So in his mind, he's thinking, okay, I want you to do it this newest, latest way. The way you're doing it, it's a 10-year-old way, and he's tempted to not pass you. And in fact, I think Dave was telling me that at the end of that 8-hour session, when I say he was exasperated, I think he said something to the effect, you didn't pass, you sort of passed, and you passed. Right? Even with the best one of the three, which was Professor Fernando, he wasn't super happy. But he did take the time out to do it. Now, being that it took him 8 hours, you have to expect that if your professor has to take that kind of time to test you, that there has to be some kind of compensation involved. I have no idea what Rickson charged for that session. I don't think he thought it would go 8 hours. But, he kept on until it was done. So it went all day. So I talked to other professors, and some of them will make an event out of it, but you do have to pay for the belt testing. And judo schools, they'll do it as well. They'll charge their students. When me and my son were in judo together, every 2 months we had belt testing, and not everybody was up for it. Some of us were, some of us weren't. There was a cost to it, and it would be a formal type thing, and there would be at least 3 senseis that were evaluating, and there might be 20, 30 people that were testing, and it just got all banged out in one particular day. So there I am about this whole testing. So if you have anything that you think would be good to add to this argument, comment below, because it's something that as the school gets larger, if you want to maintain consistent standards, you have to, I'm starting to think now, you have to test. Or you have to have some kind of way to do it. If you don't have instructors up the yin-yang where you have, say, 1 instructor for every 5 students, that can take charge of 5 students and be responsible for them, then, in that case, you don't need to do any belt testing. But if you have 1 black belt and 100 students, then there has to be some way to get it done in an efficient manner, at the same time allowing you to maintain the standards as you grow older, or not as you grow larger. Because other than that, if you can't maintain standards, then there's no reason to have a large school. Really, because you've gotten past the point at which you can evaluate. Now, if we think of just ordinary school, it doesn't matter if your school is a small school or if it's a high school that has 1,000 graduating seniors. You're going to have tests. Now, of course, you say, well, though they don't charge in school for tests. Well, yeah, they do. Here in Texas, we pay property taxes, and our property taxes, 2.5% of the value of your house, 1.5%, so more than half of that goes to the local school district. Teachers don't work for free. Schools don't operate for nothing. We all pay for it through our taxes. When my friends are telling me, look, a jiu-jitsu school is an entity that needs to survive. And it all comes down to time. If somebody's not getting compensated for their time, then they're not going to do it. Simple as that. And that's true. So if you're going to have a black belt that's going to be evaluating members, and the members want to feel that they've earned their rank, you have to do some sort of testing. Anyway, any kind of comments you can put in there, how your school does it. If you're a black belt or you run a school, say so and tell us how you do it. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, I hope your training is going well, and I hope you're being safe. We'll talk to you soon. Until next time. Take care. Bye-bye.